But it's interesting too because the Effinger had military gear that no civilian should have been able to have. He had biological weapons.
Oh, word! Damn.
He had poison gas. In fact, one of the here's where it gets really wild, right? When they were getting busted, they were plotting a Bolshevik-style revolution in the U.S. They were studying the Bolshevik Revolution and were going to emulate it, but as a fascist group.
Welcome to The Empire Never Ended with Boris, Fritz, and Ray, and Lester Glint.
Hey.
Yeah, buddy.
Damn glad to be here.
Lester, historian, working on, has done a shit ton of work on the Black Legion, which I know listeners might have even already heard him appear on The Farm. Also, Lester, you have or had your own podcast?
I do have my own podcast. It's a satirical podcast where I just what we like to do is kind of combine some real muckrakey conspiratorial adjacent research with just the most ridiculous fad of the week conspiracy. And
that sounds like the perfect show.
Yeah, I like conspiratainment, but it's obviously deeply problematic and culturally. So, if their disinformation recipe is like 70 to 80% real stuff and then 20 to 30%, the hooks to redirect you, then I'll just flip it on its head,
Love it. It's like consploitation.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I think that's fair.
It's a good genre.
Yeah.
What's the name of the podcast? I think you didn't say.
Something Unexplained.
Yeah, Something Unexplained.
Yeah, I just have the free version to upload my stuff. So, but you can hear them all free on Patreon. They're uploaded.
Great.
You can stream them on Patreon.
Nice.
I periodically re-upload them to the rest of the podcast verse, but Patreon's a place for the moment where you can get the full archives for free. And I'll be putting some more. It's been a while. My the guy that was helping me do it, good friend of mine, he's been having some health issues and has backed out. So yeah. But yeah, I'm still gonna be doing it. It's just been a while. I got like 3 episodes written, so they're coming.
Hell yeah. Nice.
Well, today's conspiracy is sadly 100% factual and terrifying, ultra violent. Almost like surreal and dreamlike in a super nightmarish way that you can only get from affiliates of the KKK.
Yeah. For old listeners, we did talk about this particular subject, but mostly in the context of the many films and radio series that were produced around it. And that is, of course, the Black Legion, and what was it? It was the Humphrey Bogart flick.
That was the Legion of Terror.
Legion of Terror.
That's the Black Legion. That's the Black Legion. The other one is Legion of Terror.
Legion of Terror was the post-service one. That one was my favorite.
That was an excellent film. That was hilarious.
That one's for free on YouTube. So
yeah. And then I think we also did the radio series, the True Detective Mysteries one.
Well, we did, and we also did.
It's a while ago.
The Shadow.
Oh, you guys got The Shadow.
Who knows what lurks in the hearts of man? Lester knows.
Mm-hmm. Unfortunately,
yeah.
Yeah. So, just to kick it off, I guess I came to Ypsilanti, which is in southeast Michigan. It's like the sister city to Ann Arbor. It's the working class cousin. And we also have what was formerly the Michigan Normal School, which was a teaching school, which has now become Eastern Michigan University. And that's the working class college. They train teachers. U of M is the the secular Ivy League, and they train the elites, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it definitely feels that way. All the service workers live in Ypsi, and they bus into Ann Arbor, and the prices are ridiculous. And even in Ypsi, they're getting ridiculous now. So I don't know. I don't really know how people are living anymore, frankly.
Yeah.
But Ypsilanti has like a pretty complicated history. It's been the site of some of the most radical aspects of the labor movement and civil rights movement, and it's also been host to a lot of terrible, awful things and parts of the extreme right-wing movement. Harry Bennett is from the area.
Yeah, Harry Bennett, for listeners,
and
that goes back to the Henry Ford ep. That was Henry Ford's right-hand man. What was his the human resources department, right?
The services.
Services department. Yeah. He was the guy who would, have his goons kick workers in the balls when he was being nice, and otherwise just shoot them outright in the streets.
Yeah.
Harry Bennett.
Awful.
Oh, he's a superstar here.
He's basically responsible for the International Jew. No,
no, that's our boy.
I'm mistaking him for the motherfucker. Yeah,
that was the ideologue.
Bill Cameron.
Yeah, British Israelism.
Okay.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Bennett was the muscle. Bill was the brain.
Right. Okay.
Yeah,
and Henry was the mech that they all got into.
Oh
to,
man,
stomp around on
the mega machine.
The mega machine, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Harry Bennett. So I'd say for folks who've heard the Farm podcast, what we'll get into that's newer is mostly about Harry Bennett.
Yes, awesome.
And let's see, there's one other aspect. Oh, and some of the socialist newspaper reportings.
Hey, that's great.
Cool. Because John Spizik, if you've heard of him, he did some really great exposés in the New Masses that really kind of call bullshit, I think, and even a lot of the modern academia on the Black Legion, because it seems like modern academia, there's only a few scholars who've really published about the Black Legion, and it's all based on the court data, mostly.
Yeah, right.
So it's very restricted. And I think they've really taken the easy out and just assumed that what was in the courts is what was there. And they definitely found, they definitely exposed some things, but as soon as you start getting into the literature, you talked about dreamlike, you can't even nail what these people, they'll be referred to in one article as the bodyguard for the officers of the KKK. You'll see them in other places listed as a splinter group. The official narrative is that the guy who founded it was kicked out of the KKK for being too extreme. Doc Shepard, right? There's
so the Black Legion. The Black Legion to the KKK is what, like the American Nazi Party or the John Birch Society? Like the KKK was a little too liberal for them. Huh?
Yes, yeah, definitely, definitely, yeah.
Easy peasy.
I've seen phrases where Doc Shepard said that he was sick of like the Sunday picnic aspect of the KKK.
Right.
He said it was just like church picnics. Like let's get real.
Literally, it was in a lot of cases.
It was. Well,
the entire
new
church.
One. Yeah. The entire church, exactly.
So they were like hearkening back to sort of the source material of what you call it, Birth of a Nation.
Yes, yeah. They saw the new KKK that came from the Birth of the Nation as basically like a glad-handing grift, which it was. It was a glad-handing grift.
Like a franchise.
I mean, I will even admit my great-grandfather was in the KKK up in Lake County, Michigan. And he tried to recruit my grandfather to run the youth league up there.
Wow.
And my grandfather refused, and then he just went and joined the FDR work camps in central Michigan instead.
Okay.
Yeah.
Damn, that's a fuck you to the dad, huh?
Yeah, but he tried to recruit my grandfather by handing him a .38 revolver, Yeah. And now the .38 is, and it was in the late 20s, right? And so now I'm like, okay, my great grandfather, this is family history that I don't know how I've never thought about it in terms of the Black Legion until basically a couple weeks ago.
Yeah,
because I was talking with my dad about it. He was like, "Yeah, you tried to give my dad a .38."
Damn.
And wanted him to run the youth league, and And I'm like, wait, well, when was this? And he was like, yeah, probably like 28. I was like, wow. 28.
Ooh,
I was like, the KKK was already like...
That's post-scandal, right?
Yeah, that's post-scandal.
Trafficking scandal, whatever it was.
Yeah. That's the KKK went from potentially as many as 4 million to 30,000 in a couple of years, you know?
Right.
I was like, and the 38 is very prominent within KKK lore. KKK, or not KKK, Black Legion.
Black Legion.
Yeah. That's what they do their oaths on, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
And the 38 is also the standard service revolver for the police, and I think that's
right.
You know, and where my family was up in Baldwin, Michigan. Baldwin, Michigan is basically it's a backwoods resort town. It's a hunter's town, and all the UAW folk would come, and they had cabins up in Baldwin. It was a destination in Lake County there. It was also close to where Idlewild Resort. Yeah, okay. Which was like the destination for black performing artists in the 20s and 30s. It was legendary. People would come from the South. It was a hot spot to be. And so that was up in Lake County too. In the next town over, basically. So you had all these UAW guys coming up with their automotive connections, and I don't know if you guys got into it too much, but Black Legion and the automotive industry are like, you know, they're deeply, deeply married. And when you get into the John Spizik material, he basically said, so the official story is that Doc Shepard got too weird, adopted the Quantrill Raider oath, dyed his robes black, and the KKK was like, they're too weird, too extreme, you got to get out of here. And then eventually he hooked up with this guy named Burt Effinger, who was high up in the Indiana clan. No, he was also in Ohio. But he knew a lot of folks in Indiana and Michigan.
Sorry, it's Burt Effinger? I wrote down Virgil.
Virgil Effinger.
Virgil Effinger. Okay.
Yeah. I think it might be his middle name. I don't remember. Maybe I'm making it up.
Well, that's fine.
Virgil. Yeah. I think Virgil Burt. I think I've seen the hyphens. Virgil Burt Effinger.
Well, look, I mean, these guys will never turn down a chance to add a name to their name.
It's true. Yeah, they all have multiple nicknames, especially Bennett. When you get into Bennett, he had a lot of little nicknames. They called him the Little Giant, the Little Fella, because he was only 5'6". Yep.
Little fella.
The Duke of Michigan. I've seen him referred to.
Well, that's probably post Mansion, right? Post Crazy Mansion.
Well, there was no post Crazy Mansion for this guy.
Oh.
He crazy mansioned his way right into the sunset in the desert.
That's
literally.
Yeah.
He just hopped from crazy mansion to crazy mansion.
Awesome. True American. That's the dream right there.
So the official story is that Doc Shepard hooked up with Effinger, and Effinger had a lot of industrial contacts because he was in the AFL-CIO before he got kicked out for being too crazy. And he had a lot of industrial they were both pretty high up in the leadership of the KKK before they were kicked out. And Effinger had a lot of industrial contacts in Indiana through the KKK, even though he was in Lima, Ohio.
All right.
But then there's this guy, Isaac Pegleg White.
More Peglegs, huh? We have a Joe Pegleg Morgan. We've got an Isaac Pegleg White now.
Isaac came from Pennsylvania. He came out of Pennsylvania and came to Detroit, and he got a job with the Detroit Police Department. And he became a legend. He kind of built his name, claiming that he lost his leg in a shootout with the Purple Gang. But really, there was some really innocuous auto accident.
Okay,
he lost his leg in a very innocuous auto accident. But he became known as kind of a terrorist, right? As soon as he came into the state, as soon as he came into the state of Michigan, the state police of Michigan began an investigation. Because he was already on the radar from what he was doing in Pennsylvania. In Pennsylvania, he was in a group called the Bucktails, which I cannot find a single other reference to. But except for the fact that Bucktails is also the nickname of a Pennsylvania Rifleman Regiment.
Well, okay. I mean, there's
so it could literally just be the veterans of this Rifleman Regiment, which I think you'll see. I mean, all these figures, Bennett, Effinger, they all were in the military. Most of them were in the Spanish-American War. Bennett was in World War I. Was the Navy. So they all have they're trying to relive the glory days, basically. And they also are trying to keep the training, I guess.
I guess before we get a little bit deeper, maybe we should just give a quick reminder of what exactly the Black Legion is. Just for maybe new listeners or ones that haven't listened to, to that episode we did like 2 years ago.
Well, I feel like we've been kind of dancing around it because it is nebulous, right? So the official standard is Doc Shepard in Bel Air, Ohio, which is the rural eastern edge, got sick of the KKK's namby-pamby bullshit and said, let's go hard. He adopted the Quantrill Oath, which is this really hardcore blood oath.
Yeah, is that the one with like God and the devil in it?
Oh man, it's insane. I read the whole thing on the Farm podcast.
I remember. There's some pretty good lines.
I can find just the good stuff.
I like that also in this oath, if I recall, they ask you if you're willing to die for this cause before they ask you even if you think miscegenation's a good idea. Like, you know what I mean? Like they start out with what happens if you say, yeah, I'm willing to die for this cause, but then they're like, do you think that black people and white people are equal? And you say, yeah. Oh, is that what this is about? Like, what happens then? There's
a pre-sort. There's a pre-sort. When they take you, so there's lots of different ways people got initiated. Some people were ex-Klan and really liked the Klan and were sad that it fell apart. And then it was someone just pitched it to them, and they're like, "Hell yeah, let's do it!"
So right? they were like Grand Dragoned in.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And some people were said, "Hey, we're gonna go to this civic club meeting where we're gonna fight international communism or promote public education, aka fight segregation, desegregation." And some people thought they were coming to a very bland, slightly conservative civic meeting,
Yeah.
And then they're suddenly out deep in the country on some farmer's field, and there's several hundred men all wearing black robes with torches, and they get you out, and then they ask you a series of questions, and demographic questions, basically.
Right.
To make sure you meet the prereqs. And then they take you and they do the oath. So it's basically like a double check, I think, when they ask you again. And then they do the mock hanging, which actually one of the main academics, scholars on this, said that he thought that the downfall of the Black Legion was that the theatrics were getting too much for people. That because they had to put on this big show, everyone had to come to these big recruitment galas,
Yeah.
And they just saw this mock hanging over and over and over and over, and they just got sick of it.
Yeah.
So they were there for the violence against like non-white people and like whatever communists and the like, but they didn't want to have to go through the hazing.
Yeah.
Okay.
Or they just got sick of...
They got sick of participating in it because it's just a lot of work, And
it takes an hour to clean your robes. You gotta like make sure the torches are fueled. You gotta all that shit,
And do you know, Lester, if they had some conflict with the Klan at some point?
I have not seen any direct conflict. No.
Okay.
There is. It really looks like, in a lot of ways, the Black Legion was just the rebranding of the Klan after the scandal. And if you believe Virgil Effinger, he claims the exact same numbers as the Klan.
Okay.
The Klan claimed at their peak they had 4 million, and he claimed at their peak that they had 4 million.
Okay.
Is that likely? Would you say?
No.
I mean, that's a lot of fucking people.
Yeah, but some of these groups in the interwar had crazy fucking numbers, Really.
Oh, they did.
But again, that would make them like essentially twice the American Legion, so that is unrealistic. Yeah, absolutely.
No, I asked this question about the conflict with the Klan because when you said they were like making too much of a spectacle and that was their downfall, that reminded me of the Colombians that we talked about recently from the late 40s, early 50s, who were kind of too much in the spotlight doing like spectacular things, and this is why they were in the end canceled basically by the KKK.
Canceled by the KKK.
So the main difference I think between the Colombians and the Black Legion is the Black Legion was completely underground. The Colombians were more like a street gang, is my impression.
Yeah.
They were a lot more above ground. The Black Legion, there's almost no knowledge of them, except for, I think, among black communities knew about them because they were being murdered by them.
Right.
And there was only like two or three cases that made small news before the big murders that, were national, international.
I mean, Malcolm X's father, right, was famously murdered by the Black Legion.
Yes, it was believed so.
Yeah.
It was believed so. And that's part of the reason why we don't even really know the extent of their terrorism, because a lot of what they did was push people in front of streetcars, run people over on the sidewalk, hit and runs, drive-bys, poisonings. So we only know 2 or 3 very distinct murders, and that's what put them on the spotlight. And there's Silas Coleman, John Bielak, and
Charles Poole, right?
Charles Poole, that's the big one. That's the one that really got busted. So I'd say, getting back to your point, right? Initially, the conflict was Doc Shepard went off script and he got kicked out. So from the very beginning, supposedly they were kicked out. But then, like I said, some history says, well, they were just the official bodyguards of the officers of the KKK. So were they really kicked out, or were they, were they just given a different, line of work?
Sure.
Although that explanation, I don't know. Maybe that's how they started. There was a group called the Paul Reveres that Effinger. Sometimes it was claimed that they were the elite death squad of the Black Legion, about 300 members, and then other times that they were the actual parent organization of the Black Legion. That the Black Legion was one of their front groups, right? Like an exoteric and esoteric order.
Yeah.
That the Paul Reveres was the next level. And they also referred to a group called the Sons of Liberty the same way, which he liked to claim that they were inherited all the way back from the Boston Tea Party, right? But Steve Snyder over at the farm, he told me that there was actually a group that had started in Ohio a little before that went by a name called the Sons of Liberty. That was a right-wing, a kind of Southern Reconstructionist bent, the revivalist. So after the initial schism in Bel Air with Doc Shepard, I don't know about any explicit conflict between the Klan, because the Klan, like I said, the Klan went from potentially 4 million members down to 30,000 in a decade. It
sounds like they were much more similar to the way the Klan operated than the Colombians were to the Klan, because the problem with the Colombians that the Klan had with the Colombians is they were actually not killing enough people, but were too much present in the media. Unlike the Klan, who was killing much more people, but were very discreet about it. So it seems that the Black Legion is more like that.
Definitely. Doc Shepard believed that the Klan wasn't true enough to be in the Klan, right? And that's why he went back. He went back to the original KKK and the guerrillas, the Southern Confederate guerrillas, as his inspiration. And he also had this high romanticism, and it was all about the theatrics. And that's where I say, showing up thinking you're going to a civic, some civic meeting, and suddenly you're surrounded by several hundred men, all with revolvers, wearing black with skulls and crossbones. And that's a lot more intimidating than, this is my 5th initiation this month. I gotta get up.
There's like a rate of diminishing returns on that for the existing members. And from what you mentioned, this devolves into like even like silly jokes. Like you mentioned on your appearance on the farm that they would spread rumors that if you brought beer to this initiation, they would treat you a little bit better. But really, that was just so they can get a bunch of beer for their parties.
So that's kind of that's like the older tradition that the KKK and that's like
goes back.
That goes back. That's like a pre night riding, right? Night riding was this phenomenon that just happened mostly in rural places, I think. Because it happened around here, and I mentioned that on the podcast. In the late 1800s, there was this group of farmers who had their little secret club, and they would go around and terrorize other farmers by doing surreal pranks.
Yeah.
Like they would totally disassemble their machinery, and the farmer would get up, and there'd just be a pile of bolts.
Yeah.
Or they'd like hang their animals from the ceiling of their barn in like weird positions, so they'd walk in, and all their animals would be suspended.
These are called dick moves.
Yeah, definitely. Seriously, dick moves. And so the KKK is kind of part of that tradition, but on the farther end of the terrorist spectrum, right?
Yeah, right.
And so this was part of the broader night riding tradition of the rural conservative folks.
Okay.
When a new guy came to town, they say we have the most hardcore secret society you can imagine here, and we'll make you so powerful if you join. But the hazing is really, really awful. Like sometimes people die. But if you bring beer and everyone's really happy beforehand, then they'll take it easy on you.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
So then the guy shows up with his keg or whatever, and then the joke's on him. It's just a big party, and he brought the beer. And but then he's in the club. So
so they're not teetotalers.
No. Okay. But they preached. Well, at least the Black Legion and the KKK, right? They both preached temperance. They were both part of the.
Right.
They were part of that whole movement, but partially they wanted their club to be the exception.
Because I know that was like a lot of the WASP anxiety about a lot of these new immigrant groups, right? Germans, all they do is drink beer and this, that, and the other thing. The Irish, and they framed it a lot of the time in this kind of temperance language.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
it's kind of funny that double standard there, huh?
Yeah, I think it was mostly to. The stance up against temperance was probably to target the Catholics more than immigrants, more than actual a moral issue. Because, like I said,
to outlaw the blood of Christ. Thanks for bringing the keg of beer, though.
Right.
By the way. We will go easy on you today.
Oh hell yeah! In the club.
Yeah.
So when you get into the socialist literature, John Spivak writes in one of his stories, let me read it here. Oh, it's getting back to the drinking and non-drinking, right? Henry Ford, right? Notorious teetotaler.
Yes.
Very conservative, very, yes. I don't mean that politically, like personally conservative, straight-laced, clean living.
Well, yeah, well, but you can't, if you, like, alcohol will muck up the circuitry. So it's just like,
it's true.
Fatty foods will do it.
Bennett, on the other hand, was a hard drinker, a very hard drinker. Yeah. And he was Ford's best friend. He drove Ford to and from work almost every day.
Drunk.
Probably.
Cameron was an alcoholic as well. No?
As well, yeah, totally.
Yeah.
He had his pagoda mansion in Grosse Ile outside of Detroit.
Yes.
Goes right down to the waterfront. And he had a pool. And the pool had a secret bar beside the pool underground.
Yeah, so you could see the people swimming.
You could watch people swim and drink at the bar. Yeah. Yes. He also had another one of his mansions. He had a secret room at the nexus of all the ventilation systems, so he could listen to conversations. But he also had a bar there, so he likes to drink while he spied. I think it was probably a kink of his.
I think the Boy Scouts took over the weird pool one.
They did. No, they took over the one. The weird pool one is Grosse Ile. The Boy Scouts took over the one in what is it? Is it Freedom, Michigan? It's Lost Lake. It's just okay. That's just it's like not even quite an hour west of Ypsilanti, Ann Arbor area.
I can't believe how much fucking money this guy had. And I guess in the Boy Scout one, is that the one where like the holes? If that's the one where the holes are cut into the eyes of the portraits, it's probably the Boy Scouts one.
I think there were multiples. That was kind of all of his mansions. They say, except for his very last one, was full of secret tunnels, spy traps, and literally turrets with machine guns.
Yes,
gunners' nests. But the thing was, is he did need it. People were trying to kill him all the time.
Fuck yeah, he was a piece of shit.
Yeah, he needed it. He deserved it. The thing is this dude got away with it. This guy, he did. He fucked off into the sunset. He went down to Desert Palms, California, and got him a mansion way up in the mountains to where he could see in every direction if anyone was coming for miles and miles and miles.
Yeah.
And he did what every great terrorist tyrant does, he picked up painting and he became a great landscape painter. And it's part of the desert artist tradition.
How about that?
Yeah. And, he also liked to keep lions and tigers.
Yep.
So he had two places really close to me. Frankly, I've probably squatted on one of his properties. I didn't even realize it. There's this abandoned spot on the river that I just like to treat as my personal park for a while after they demolished the mansion on it. And I think it was probably part of his original property now, ironically enough. But he had this spot on the Huron River between Ypsilanti and Ann Arbor that was actually where he was from. Not the house, but the area. It was a kind of like a four corners spot called Gettysburg, which doesn't exist anymore as a township or anything. But it's on the old maps. And his dad died in a ballroom brawl, right? And when he was young, and his mother was an artist, and she actually sent him to art school. So he was trained as an artist before World War I, and when he went into the Navy. And he went into the Navy as a deep sea diver, but as an intelligence. He was in the intelligence. Of course
I was about to ask you, because if he's following the pattern of being a failed artist, the next step is to join intelligence and then start a fascist organization.
Yeah. And that's where I say, when you look at like the Colombians and groups like the Bucktails and the Black Legion, and you can find every different region has a handful of little groups kind of like this. None that stand out quite as much as the Black Legion, I think. But I'm almost like, is there like middle management, right? Like Bennett was like the middle management, and he had the Black Legion, and some other guy down. I forget the two guys who were running the Colombians. I don't know if any of them were military intelligence before. But is this just like, are they franchising?
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
What exactly was his position in the Black Legion, Harry's?
Harry had no official position that I'm aware of, but he did directly appoint Black Legion members to positions, and that is known. That is explicit.
Okay, he was like a gray eminence then, huh?
Here we go. Let me read this. So this guy named Mr. Dickinson. This guy named Dickinson, Weston Dickinson. Let me just read this interview. This is John Spivak interviewing him. The office of the manager of the Secretary of State is a political plum, quote, I ventured. Quote, lots of politicians would like it. Why should it be given to you? Did you have any political power? Mr. Dickinson sighed. I was never in politics in my life until recently. I was not in politics when I got the appointment. Then you said it should be given, then why should it be given to you, a total stranger to the governor or the Secretary of State, a man with no political influence or power? I really don't know. He assured me blandly. It's a mystery. It's always been a mystery to me. Why, mister, my wife and I used to sit around and puzzle over it for hours and hours. We never could understand it. Perhaps if you told me the name of the high Ford official who asked you if you wanted to be manager of the Secretary of State's office, we'd be able to solve the mystery, I suggested. Oh, his name doesn't matter. He was just a high Ford official. But Ford officials don't normally pass out political plums. He may have heard the job was open. Were you giving satisfactory service at the Ford plant? Oh yes, I did my work as well as I knew how. How would the Ford plant benefit if you were manager of the Secretary of State's office? There was no connection between my duties in the Secretary of State's office and the Ford plant, he said quickly. I handled state licenses in the Secretary's office. That was my job. It does look like a mystery, doesn't it? The Ford people stand to gain nothing by your new political job. So they give up a man whose services are valuable to them just to do him a favor? Was the official who offered this political plum to you a friend of yours? No, I never saw him before. He called me in and asked me if I wanted the job. Why should he have picked you of all the thousands of people in the plant, a man whom he did not know, who had worked at the Fords only a short time? That's the mystery. I never could figure it out. What's the objection to telling me who the high official is? Oh, I'd rather not. Wasn't this high official Harry Bennett, chief of Ford's Secret Service? I asked gently. The twitch over his right eye became a little pronounced. I would rather not say, he said slowly. You know Harry Bennett? Possibly I've seen him and talked to him once or twice in my life, he said, spreading his arms out on his desk and fiddling with some papers. You'd rather not say that it was Harry Bennett who offered you the job? I'd rather not say, he said slowly. Did you have any dealings with Harry Bennett while you were manager of the Secretary of State's office? Not directly. I dealt with two of his men, just routine matters, like trying to get people jobs in the Ford plant. I'd write letters recommending them, and some would get the jobs, and some would not. Was getting people jobs in the Ford plant through the head of the Secret Service part of your job of handling state licenses? No, he said, staring out the window. It was just one of those things that a fellow does. I was a laborer once. I worked hard. Now, when a fellow comes into my office and needed a job and I thought I could place him by a note to Mr. Bennett, why, naturally, I'd try. I want to see people get work. Then, too, my job was a sort of political job, and politicians have to try to help people. I see. Now, weren't the people of whom you tried to get the jobs members and officials of the Black Legion? The twitching became so pronounced that his right eye was almost closed. He rose from his chair and walked over to the window, shaking his head. Mister, he said vigorously, I never heard of the Black Legion until I read about it in the papers.
Nice. Awesome.
How long were you in the Secretary of State's office? Until December 1934, he said, returning to his chair. I resigned after another man was elected Secretary of State. Had you, between the time you took the office of manager of the Secretary of State's office and the time you resigned, become an important power politically? No, he smiled. I never was an important power. I ran for a minor office and got 15,000 votes. That's nothing. How did you happen to get this job? Isn't this a political plum, too? He smiled and shook his head. Mister, he said, leaning over and gazing earnestly into my eyes, it may sound strange to you, but why I was picked for this job is also a mystery. I was appointed by Governor Fitzgerald. Who was definitely a member. I never knew anything about it until I was appointed. I happened to be in Lansing one day after I resigned and went in to see the governor, Governor Fitzgerald, just to pay my respects, you know? I was standing there saying hello to the governor when he called in George Clark and said, Say, George, get the diploma for Wesson for the private employment office. And George Clark came out with my appointment as superintendent of the private employment bureaus in the state of Michigan. Yes, sir, that's exactly how it happened. I was glad to get it, of course. I had been out of a job for a month. I was appointed to the office on February 6, 1935, and I had resigned from the state secretary's office in December 1935. So you see, I had been out of a job for almost a month, and, well, that was a break, wasn't it? No money, no job, no political influence, not especially friendly with the governor, and you walk in to pay your respects, and the governor just hands you a political plum. Well, everybody gets a break sometimes, you know?
Wow. This guy's awesome.
Yeah. I mean, it's great. So, like he's really pushing him. Spivak's really pushing him to be like, so if you're just some regular guy, how are you? What are these connections to people?
Mystery.
Oh, Black Legion. I've never heard of it.
Oh, I love this guy.
Good Lord.
That's a mystery. You couldn't possibly have controlled 30,000 votes and got the appointment in return for that, could you? 30,000 votes? He repeated in a puzzled voice. Why? The most I ever got, interrupts, 15,000 when you ran for a minor office, right? That's right. How could I control 30,000 votes? The Black Legion in Michigan is estimated at about 30,000 members. Mister, I told you I had never heard of the Black Legion until I read about it in the newspapers. And then he gets on to the fact that his lawyer is Harry Z. Marks.
Harry Z. Marks.
Yes,
okay.
this guy's a player. He's at the center of all this too. Him and Bennett. Yeah. And Ford, right? Him, Bennett, and Ford. But Ford, Bennett was the fall guy, I guess, right? So Harry Z. Marks was a lawyer who changed his name because he had a German last name. Oh, Marks is German,
and it was Marks.
But, yeah. But he thought it was easier to pronounce. So he held the address for the Wolverine Republican League.
Okay.
Which was a front group for the Black Legion. Which was actually it formed out of a merger of two Republican organizations. It was like the Wayne County and like the 17th Congressional District Republican Club or something. They merged to form the Wolverine Republican Club, but it was a 100 Republican League, but it was 100% Black Legion.
So this is their kind of above ground front group.
Yes. Yep. Yep. One of them. Yeah.
One other thing worth mentioning about Harry Z. Marks is that he was head of the Americanization Committee in 1934 of the American Legion.
Yes, there's a connection.
There's a few. I found a few actually last year. I'm going to run some of them by you, but this is one of the first ones. Yeah.
Awesome.
So you think that figure that Spivak gives there, about 30,000, is probably relatively accurate?
That is the kind of academic consensus. That is academic consensus about 30,000 in Michigan.
But they were also active, in Ohio and
they were very large in the Rust Belt. What is now the Rust Belt? But the Midwest industrial areas.
Do you know if there was any spillover to Canada? I mean, it seems kind of logical with like Windsor, Ontario being right there.
I would definitely assume there would be, especially with Windsor, but I don't have any direct references for that.
Cool.
But I'd have to assume so.
Because the clan in Canada is always an interesting subject too that gets kind of overlooked a lot.
Well, this is kind of deeper history, older history, but have you heard of the Patriot hunting lodges?
No, but I don't like the name of that at all.
No,
this is really old. This was
depends on if there's a hyphen or not. I mean, if there's a hyphen, fine. That sounds fine.
This was in the 1840s, 1830s, when the Masons were. It was the anti-Mason era.
Yeah.
So all the Masonry groups officially disbanded for about 15 years.
Mm.
But when that happened, they all formed these hunting lodges, quote unquote. And all these hunting lodges appeared all along the border of the United States and Canada. And then they attempted to launch a coup in Canada using these hunting lodges that were basically Masonic front groups.
Wow.
So yeah.
Wow.
And it was big in Detroit. People in Detroit watched them launch their raid, and they had like a big like party watching them try to take the fort in Windsor and getting their asses kicked.
Damn, crazy.
Yeah. So I mean, I imagine they would, any kind of secret society with power interests in Detroit would definitely have interests in Canada for sure. Especially because they're outlaw. Bennett had a lot of connections with organized crime, and that's the only thing that came back to bite him after he was fired in 1945 by Henry Ford II. He got called in. He had to testify in 1951 for racketeering because he gave mafia bosses direct dealership rights. So that's, and people say that in his hideout in his retirement home, that gangsters and hitmen and stuff were coming to see him all the time. So there's actually a legend that what's his name? The big time gang, Al Capone. The Al Capone went down there. There's like local folklore, but historians think that is actually because it was actually Harry Bennett, but people didn't really know who Harry Bennett was. So they're just like this
they
hardcore
saw
gangster,
a short gangster guy, a short crazy gangster walking around, and they've
conflated it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Interesting.
Presumably, that's maybe when they altered some of their anti-Italian stances or whatever, or that's just business, I guess.
So the Black Legion basically ended, quote unquote, after the big court case with Charles Poole's murder,
right?
And Silas Coleman. When all that shook out, basically the Ford withdrew his protection, right? And whoever other governors, because 2 Michigan governors were definitely members. Bruder and Fitzgerald were definitely members.
Who's this guy? Was he? I wasn't a governor. Sorry, he was like a police commissioner. I think I have him here as Heinrich Pickert. Have you heard of this name? I got
was he
this
Detroit?
From,
I know the chief of Detroit was a member.
Let me see. But they called him Hitler. Heinrich Hitler. Heinrich Hitler Pickert was this guy's name.
I remember reading something about him, but I can't quite place it.
I'm trying to look it up too. Yeah, but that's also an American Legion connection because the American Legion was collecting signatures on his behalf. This is according to what's it called, like the Black Legion Rides or something.
Right. Yeah. That's one of the easy to get references.
Yeah. George Morris.
What about, have you come across Leslie J. Black?
No.
He was the president of the Wolverine Republican League. Art Loop. Arthur, have you heard of Art Loop? Has he come up?
That name I would definitely remember, but I don't think I saw him in my Legion stuff.
He was kind of, Art Loop was run in Michigan especially after Isaac Pegleg White.
Yeah.
He got too much attention on him. And so he moved out to Lansing to try to keep a low profile, but he ended up moving back to Pennsylvania. So after Isaac White got kind of sidelined, Art Loop took over running Michigan.
Okay.
Yeah. And there was other prominent, I'm pretty sure Mitt Romney's father.
Oh,
awesome. Who was governor in the 60s. It seems like he may have been a member in his youth as a teenager.
Interesting.
So they were cool with the Mormons, huh?
Apparently. Just not Catholics.
I was going to ask you about that. Because I know Coughlin had like a strange relationship with...
Oh, they tried to kill Coughlin.
These are the guys that started Coughlin's fucking career, right? Like they basically attacked the Little Flower Church or whatever. and that's what made him into a public figure, right?
It helped.
I've always been suspicious about that story somehow.
Do you think it was a false flag, kind of?
I don't know if I would go that far necessarily, but I do wonder. Thing. But like Coughlin, like I mean, they literally did after it happened. Literally did stage it for newsreels. You know, like they acted it out. They had actors in it. They had like so there is. It was an important story for Coughlin's beginning. And I also know that Coughlin softened Klan attitudes towards the beginning of the Second World War.
Yeah, they came together.
Yes, yeah. So I'm very suspicious about this. But like again, with the Black Legion, you can't be really too suspicious because like again, like you said, they go from doing completely surreal shit that's designed to be like if you told your neighbor about it, no one would believe you anyway, you know?
Yeah.
They're very good at OPSEC. They keep a very tight lid on things. They kill their own members constantly, especially the ones that are most at risk of blowing up their operation, right?
So it's a matter of policy, definitely, yeah.
I mean, I wouldn't fucking put it past them to like, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, because they're you know, the only difference Father Coughlin did back the Franklin programs, at least at first, right?
Uh-huh.
And the Black Legion hated those programs. That was part of their wedge issue.
Sorry, remind us what the Franklin programs are.
The Roosevelt, the worker
you're talking about like the New Deal and shit.
The New Deal stuff, yeah.
Okay,
yeah. So Father Coughlin was somewhat pro New Deal, or at least too friendly for the Black Legions. And so, you know, Dean, what's his name? The trigger man who killed Poole. Dean Denton? Dean? I was getting mixed around. Let me pull it up here. So the main hitman that we know about in Detroit was this poor schmuck. He was a poor schmuck named Denton Dean. Where is his name? I had it right up here. It's everywhere. That's the only name that you can really find most of the time when you search the Black Legion. So I guess it doesn't matter. Anyway, he was a member initially. He was a Klansman, and he was a member of the Orangemen, right? A Protestant,
word.
Right?
Okay.
And they were both a little bit defunct when the Black Legion came up, so he just jumped right in it because he was looking for it. And he was an alcoholic. He got in trouble he got demoted by the Black Legion once for getting drunk and raping his 12-year-old daughter. But they didn't kill him. I think this was because he'd already done enough wet works for them that he was valuable.
Sure.
Yeah. Because normally they would have just, they killed Charles Poole for
allegedly
beating his wife into a miscarriage. Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is
she had a baby the next day or some shit.
Yeah,
right?
a healthy baby. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. She was in fine health. But so he was supposedly they were going to take this guy who is just this alcoholic street thug, couldn't hold down a job. And what the Black Legion did, and this is also what the Bucktails did, which seems like part of the whole program, is they get people jobs. They're an employment agency, right?
Yeah.
And you see that with that interview I was reading about. His job was to get people jobs.
Yeah.
And later in the interview, he starts drilling him, and he says, "Why were all of these? Did you meet in your offices with Loop and Black and Mark's partner, Marion Leacock, in your office?" Said maybe they came into my office from time to time. I said, didn't they meet with you every week? Mister, I don't know where you're driving at. I tell you, I never heard of the Black Legion until I read about it in the newspapers.
But there's a Wild Bill Donovan on the Lions baseball team from that period, from when Ford was backing it.
Yep.
That was very confusing for me.
Isn't it?
I was getting super excited at first. I was like, yes, this is what I was looking for. Fucking Bill Donovan connection. And there is, but it's not what you think.
No.
But can you maybe also talk a little bit about that? Like, how does the Black Legion story fit into these other mundane things? He's like, okay, employment agencies is a really good example of like a mundane bureaucratic office that allowed them to wield an enormous amount of power in the composition of like labor forces in their areas, right?
Yeah,
as a very potent anti-union, anti-communist kind of tactic. What other kinds of more mundane cultural and political spaces did these guys manage to operate in?
They were everywhere. They're really focused primarily on political and economic power, which is interesting. They definitely were focused on education. A lot of their recruitments were focused on somewhat promoting public education while also attacking desegregation.
Mm-hmm.
So that was a big one. A big one was definitely just education, and they also were really big into just bland anti-communism.
Yeah, sure. About the education thing, were they part of the push to make teachers take loyalty oaths to the country?
I don't know about teachers, but they had this pledge that they wanted all the people to sign.
Okay.
I found a leaflet that had that it was a pledge to oppose the papacy in education and desegregation and
okay, a bit different. Yeah,
a bit different
because they were throwing around the same kind of Legion style phrases that I guess some of them picked up with their time with Teddy Roosevelt, which was the 100% Americanism bit, huh? Do you think that came through? That probably came through like Spanish American veterans in the Klan.
Effinger,
right?
Effinger was a Spanish American veteran.
Okay, all right. Did he bring that phrase in?
Yeah, he was hardcore.
Well, yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah. Interesting. So this kind of, sorry, just to place this in the context of this arc right now, then this is then an interesting, this is a cousin and essentially in a lot of ways to the Legion. It seems like, because Effinger wasn't American Legion, as far as I know. Right. So you have the American Legion branching off from the sort of Teddy Roosevelt imperialistic 100% Americanism, proto-fascistic kind of ideals, and then you've got the Black Legion making its own branch through the KKK, but both extending out of the Spanish American War. So I think that's interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Kissing cousins, I think they call them.
And I guess the Black Legion here being kind of through its control of employment agencies there to secure WASP jobs against Black and immigrant labor. No.
Yes, definitely. But they also took over unions themselves. The Hudson plant the union was actually run by the Black Legion.
Wow.
Against the actual union workers.
Whoa. Nice.
So they were going for so they were, while being opposed to the unions, they were taking over the labor unions, right? And while being opposed to the New Deal programs, they were also taking over the New Deal program.
So you mean like they were able to for like the works progress stuff or whatever, like the work actions, they were able to staff those?
Yep.
Wow.
Yep.
All right.
Yeah. So then even the people getting jobs through those programs were often getting vetted through the Black Legion.
Interesting. Wow. Does that connect to Charles Poole's murder? Because Charles Poole is a WPA employee, right?
Yes. Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. And so this is where it gets confusing, because in some sources it treats Charles Poole as if he was a member.
Actually, can we back up and can we explain the whole Charles Poole
thank you,
story?
Yeah. Yes. Okay, so Charles Poole, he was a worker for the WPA, and he was a Catholic. And so it's a little confusing because in some of the sources it reads like he was actually a member of the Black Legion. And in other sources, it reads like he was just some guy that got targeted.
So I think Humphrey Bogart's film's interpretation is more the one where he is like a unwitting member, or like a naive member, right?
Yeah, that's how there was this Under the Star of the Guard by a U of M grad student, was published in the early 90s. That's how that one portrays it. Is that he was a member, maybe a little naive, maybe a newer member. And it would have made sense that they would recruit him because he had a position in the WPA that could employ people.
Yeah.
But he was also Catholic. So I think already being a member of the WPA and being Catholic, somebody in a meeting just like randomly interjected, just shouted out that he had heard that Charles Poole beat his wife into having a miscarriage. Right. And so, and Charles Poole wasn't at the meeting, and it seems like because he wasn't at the meeting, this guy threw him under the bus. Right. And, so then they decide, they hold a vote, and they say they're gonna hang him. So they get a rope together and they get a posse. They get like 3 cars going, and while they're driving, they pick a spot. They decide that a couple of guys are gonna go get Poole, and they're gonna tell him that they know he liked baseball, so they were gonna take him to go play some baseball. Right? They're gonna meet some guys and play some baseball. And so they're driving out. They're driving around, and they go to a kind of rural spot, which I think now is by the Velodrome. I think it's by the Velodrome in Detroit. I'm not totally sure, which is an old bicycle racetrack that's all abandoned and graffiti now. It's pretty cool. And so one of the cars that had the noose got lost, right, on the route, got separated and lost. And it was a big problem there. Well, what are we going to do? We voted to hang him, but we can't hang him. We don't have a noose. And so, after a lot of debate, someone decided, well, I guess we can just shoot him. And so they got him out of the car and they just filled him full of lead.
Yeah.
And they found his body a couple days later. And this was the story that broke, and in connection with a couple others, mostly the murder of Silas Coleman, who was a black worker in one of the plants who was thrill killed. Some of the black members were on a 3-day weekend vacation, and they thought it would be fun to shoot a black guy. So they arranged a kind of what's the most dangerous game or whatever scenario, and they lured him out by promising that he was going to get repaid for some money that he was owed, and they just shot him in the back while he was running away. So
Jesus,
damn. Yeah, but the most fucked up thing about that story is where they dumped him was in Ford Mill Pond, okay? So they found his body at Ford Mill Pond. And so the police show up, and they say, please, sir, Mr. Henry Ford, can we please search your pond? And we'd like to dredge it. And Henry Ford said, absolutely not. No way, no how, I will not let you do anything at all.
Wow.
And so they recovered Silas Coleman's body, but they were unable to search the property, dredge the pond, or anything. And they asked the groundskeeper. They said, "Sir, what do you, if we were able to dredge this pond, what do you think we would find?" And he said, "Mister, this place is a cemetery."
Wow. Yeah. Shit.
Yeah.
This is some fucking rich people shit, man. It just has it all over it. Like hunting man, that's just their thing.
Yeah.
God damn.
So, but the Charles Poole thing was too much because he that in conjunction with the Silas Coleman thing. I don't even know if they would have cared about the Silas Coleman thing, frankly, if it wasn't in conjunction with this Charles Poole murder getting to the news around the same time. Because it seems like their reign of terror against black organizers and union extremists were actually endorsed by law enforcement. So it's just the fact that they killed a public worker who just had a baby, a young wife. It was too much. So they basically burned the organization. And so this is where it also gets dicey because, the official story is Virgil Effinger is the head, right? He's the head of the Black Legion. But when you read John Spisak, he says that the Black Legion was really founded in 1931, and it was really founded in the governor's office, and it was really founded with help from Ford and Bennett. Well,
that makes plenty of fucking sense.
Yeah.
I mean, it really does.
So 31 would push back the founding date quite a bit, right? Because otherwise it's supposed to be mid-20s or something?
Yeah. Late 20s, 37, I think.
Late 20s.
Yeah. So what it seems to me is that, there was probably some hooliganism, right? Some clans doing some clansmen who are getting shit. Who are getting a little wild. And the boys up north said, wow, that looks a lot of fun. And it seems like they probably just adopted the aesthetic and the form. Like it was kind of like they turned it into a hierarchy when it was probably just like a small phenomenon against a very culturally, rural East Ohio Klansmen, who are getting weird.
They're black shirts, I mean, this is the fact that Ford, when he's talking about Ford, he uses the term Ford officials. Like companies don't have officials, states have officials.
Well, it's wild when I'm reading about Harry Bennett. He was appointing people to public office all over the place directly.
That's so nuts. That's so fucking crazy.
There's at least 3 other people that I was reading that he was like, Harry Bennett gave me the job. Like,
this is the last person you would want to be appointing public officials. Harry Bennett. Harry fucking kick him in the brass. Bennett's Bennett.
Mm-hmm.
That guy.
It's really funny.
Let's shoot him from a fucking overpass, Bennett. This guy.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Right. So what people don't know, there are 2 really famous public incidences with Bennett. which put him in the news nationally and internationally. There was what's known as the Battle of the Overpass, which was later in his career. A bit. Right. Yeah. And before that was the Ford Hunger March.
Uh-huh.
And the Ford Hunger March was, 32, I think. And it was organized mostly by communists and union folk. And they were going to march to Henry Ford's employment office in Dearborn Heights. And it was a big crowd, and they were attacked the whole way by riot police, but they were able to just march through it. They just marched through tear gas, and it was no big deal. But when they got to the city line of Dearborn Heights, Ford's men were there. Ford's policemen and the service personnel, Harry Bennett's men were there, and they just opened fire on the crowd, and they just massacred people. Yeah. At least 60 people were injured and taken to jail, and 5 or 6 people were outright killed. And apparently Harry Bennett rolled up in his car and just started shooting his pistol out of the window.
Yeah, right.
And then they just opened up machine guns on them.
Yeah.
And so they mass arrested everyone who went to the hospital. Then the police showed up and arrested. They chained them to the beds in the hospital.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then that caused a huge backlash. Tens of thousands of people willing to fight came out, and they had to back down. Everyone got a raise.
Crazy.
So those are the two stories that put Harry Bennett in the spotlight in a big way. The battle for the overpass, just being throwing people literally off an overpass. Awful human being, truly a terrible human being. But he took a brick to the face. And there's some really great pictures you can see of him just bleeding profusely. It's pretty glorious.
Well,
I do recommend.
Check out our Patreon page to see those pictures under this app. There it is. We got him. We hooked him.
I want to show you guys this picture real quick.
Please. Yeah.
It's a Harry Bennett. It's the art he made for the Navy. I think you'll really appreciate it. This is what he thought was funny when he was in the Navy.
Did he get shot in one of his houses?
Yeah, he got shot. Yeah.
Do you know anything about who shot him? Because I remember I was trying to figure that out when we did our Ford episode way back in the day.
I think it was he shot him through the door. I think it was an ambush thing, a drive-by type thing.
But do you know who it was? Was it a worker?
I would love to know.
Me too. I would love to know. This person is a goddamn hero.
Yeah, I'd assume it's a UAW or adjacent, communist somebody. Maybe a former worker. Who knows? They all had brain damage.
It could be someone a family member of one of the umpteen people he's murdered.
Yeah, exactly.
There's so many reasons to off Harry Bennett.
It could have been someone that, in his, knock and slam. Yeah, you got the picture?
Yeah, we got it up here.
So this is what Harry Bennett thought was great comic art for his Navy newspaper that he worked for. It's literally, for folks who can't see it here, there's a Navy man in an umpire vest, and he's giggling, he's going, ha, 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 strike one. Uh-huh. And then there's a guy holding a baseball bat, smashing another guy in the face. Yeah. And it says knock and slam. And that's the whole comic. It's a guy getting smashed in the head.
Oh, that's funny, guys.
Wait, this appeared where?
This is art he made in the Navy.
Harry made this?
This is really...
Yeah.
He's
highbrow art, Harry.
But he's a pretty good cartoonist. I mean, that's...
You should see his desert art. It's not unpleasant to look at.
Damn.
Yeah. He was classic. He was trained. He went to high school he went to an elite art school.
All right. Comes through a little.
Yeah, and that's why he went to intelligence, naval intelligence, instead of getting chewed up in the trenches or something.
Wow.
Yeah.
Nuts.
Yeah, that sums up. I mean, I feel like you don't need to psychoanalyze him any more than this picture. That's just it. Yeah,
they are really good at telling you exactly what's going on inside their heads with their cultural productions. The fascists,
smash people in the face. It's a good time.
Yeah.
He also used to. So he had lions and tigers in his house. The castle.
Oh my.
Right.
Yeah.
It's on the Huron River. That's a property that I was probably on part of it by accident and didn't realize. The original property. It's a lot smaller now. But the castle is still there, and it has secret tunnels that went down to the river and straight to a boat, that he could escape. And he also had an island that he built right off of it with a bar. He could go have an island bar party. But he kept lions and tigers down in his tunnel.
Uh-huh.
And he thought it was really funny to let the lions and tigers out in the tunnels and turn off the lights while people were walking through there.
See, Fritz, this is some rich people shit. This is like, I bought a fucking tiger. I let it out on my guests.
And this is where, maybe it wasn't even a pissed off union guy. It literally could have just been,
Yes.
I wonder if this is where Goering got the idea to get a fucking lion or whatever it was.
Well, I'll tell you this. I have seen in multiple places cited that the Gestapo was modeled after Harry Bennett's service organization.
You see, that makes really good sense to me. That really lines up. We did call Henry Ford the original American fascist. We might have just called him the original fascist.
I think he was. I mean, I think Hitler was a 2-bit copy. He was a 2-bit copy of Henry and Harry in one. He was a shitty artist. Well,
Well, he had,
especially then when you incorporate some of this Black Legion imagery, the black uniforms, the skulls, and all that kind of shit.
Well, Steve Snyder had an interesting insight he mentioned on that podcast too, which is that the propaganda duo folk in Italy also wear black robes under their Masonic robes. They had an extra get up, and they were running a lot of the stay-behind operations during the Cold War. So they were
imagine double robing in summer in Italy.
Right,
brutal.
You would always know who was part of the secret society. They're just dripping wet.
Yeah.
So I'm kind of I'm curious now about Spivak's kind of assertion that this is essentially like a creation of local capitalists and kind of ruling class elements to be like underground terror force, and that's interesting because that's not exactly what you get when you read these kind of mainstream narratives of the Black Legion.
They're crazy satanic hillbillies.
And this is exactly the opposite, right? It's created higher up.
These are guys with multiple fucking castles, in America.
Well, this is what I was trying to talk about earlier. Dean Denton, I think his name, the guy who killed Charles Poole and who killed a couple other people on the record. Yeah. He was their favorite trigger man for a little while, but they were pretty pissed off at him because they sent him to kill a journalist up in Hudson, Pontiac for the Hudson. He was the Hudson plant was a big area of labor strikes and whatnot. That's partially why they took over the union there. But there was a journalist there that was a little hostile to the mayor, and the mayor was the city of Pontiac was almost 100% Black Legion in its leadership. City council, mayor, everyone. Detroit, a lot of the leadership was too. The guy who ended up becoming the prosecutor for the state of Michigan was a Black Legion, and then he became president of the Bar Association. The Bar Association of Michigan was a member of the Black Legion.
Damn.
Nice.
Okay.
Yeah. Fucking crazy.
And this was after the Black Legion got busted that he became the head of the Bar Association. So the thing is in Michigan, the industrial Spivak talks about this too, and then socialist papers talk about it. Is the bankers in Michigan changed the grand jury process in Michigan? Originally, it was supposed to be 23 members, and it was this very public, transparent process. Well, the bankers changed it to where grand juries were one man and everything would be sealed right before there was a big investigation on the banks, right? So they had the structure set up. So when the Black Legion was taken down, they were taken down through one-man grand juries in every county, right?
Oh, crazy. Okay.
Not a single county released they sealed and destroyed all of their documents.
Damn.
The only one that released their documents was Wayne County, because that's where the the Wolverine League was based out of.
Okay.
Right? Mm-hmm. So they kind of decided, we're going to isolate everything what has to do with this pool situation. We're going to say it was all here in Wayne County and these crazy hillbillies from Ohio. Mm-hmm. Right? And so that's how they just cut it out. Right. But so Dean, the trigger man they were going to kill him multiple times. They were going to kill him multiple times before he actually ended up getting taken down. They were going to have him kill this journalist up in Hudson and in Pontiac, dealing with the Hudson situation. And he just couldn't pull it off. The first time he kind of got cold feet, said it wasn't, he just had excuses, right? But the thing is they were planning on killing him anyway, is they were going to have him kill the journalist while they had 2 cops who were also Black Legion waiting around the corner. And then they were going to kill Dean right then and there.
Yeah.
And that was the whole plan, right?
Yeah.
And you start to see that there's a whole string of deaths with people who were Black Legion, who were just associated with Black Legion activity.
Right.
As if they were just cleaning up. It wasn't like, oh, this guy was even going to betray us. It's just that he knows or he did it.
Yeah, right.
Prison guards were dying. There was a guy they said died of a diabetic coma, and he didn't have diabetes. He was like in his 20s. He was a prison guard. He was a Black Legion member in good standing. Yeah. And that's another reason why they started going down too, is Black Legion members were just starting to get paranoid that they were going to get killed, right?
Yeah,
and I think that's a big reason why we don't know that much outside of everyone connected to these cases and the end of the characters associated with these cases. Is there were still people out there going to kill you, you know? Like if you were in and you knew that Harry Bennett was actually the higher up and that Ford was backing you, and oh wait, Henry Ford is the hero of World War II, you know, the arsenal of democracy. Ford ain't going down. Ford, you know,
he was the hero to every side of World War II.
Yeah, it's amazing. It's amazing. Yeah. Well, I'm not going to talk. If Harry Bennett's still alive, I'm not going to talk. I don't care if Effinger is gone. You know, I certainly would be afraid of someone putting a bullet in my back.
Fuck yeah.
Yeah.
And I'd imagine that it helps that when your organization has seemingly a lot of bureaucrats and people in city and state administration and the police, that it would be kind of easy to cover up any paper trail that might exist, which is really why the Black Legion to me is interesting, is because there's so little information on it, given how large of a group it seemed to have been.
Yeah. Well, that's a thing too, is, you know, when we think about the industrial Midwest now versus the industrial Midwest in the 20s and 30s, you know, the industrial Midwest in the 20s and 30s, West Michigan was booming. It was just the level of industrialization is something that's hard for us to imagine now, like living in this rotten carcass, you know?
Yeah.
Like West Michigan, I grew up in West Michigan, and Grand Rapids is a boom town now, but when I grew up, Grand Rapids was nothing. But when I was young, but back in this era, the whole west coast of Michigan was incredibly vibrant economically. Lake Michigan was still a fishery, you know, it was still an industrial food source. So they were all Black Legion. All the tool and die plant, the specialty tool and die for the automotive industry was in West Michigan. So they would sail, you know, around the lakes to get to Detroit and then down to Chicago and whatnot. So all of West Michigan was controlled by Black Legion. Gary, Indiana was controlled by Black Legion. Toledo.
There's no way they weren't tightly. I mean, like the because of where they were operating and where American Legion membership was strongest, there's a strong overlap there, just coincidentally, apart from like the names that, you know.
Well, here's another fun one, right? So this is something that never gets talked about, except for in one or two sources, because almost all of the sources want to restrict it to Ohio, Indiana, Michigan.
Sure.
And these specific people. But I think this was also in the U of M grad student paper under the Star of the Guard. I think it was that one, where he listed all the places where chapters were. And the Pacific Northwest was also Oregon, Washington. They had members. They had chapters that were listed. And so it is also, that's right. That's another bit American League, right? That's where they attacked the IWW office, right?
Yeah.
Yep. And didn't they lynch a guy out there?
Yeah.
So
too,
So it is. I think you could lay, you know, if you were laying map filters on wherever the industrial capitalist centers were that also had any sort of clan membership, all of that just became Black Legion.
Yeah, there definitely seems to be considerable overlap there. It's almost as like the Black Legion's kind of like terrorist wing of the, of the American Legion.
Yeah. When I was listening to that, your first the first American Legion episode, that's immediately I was like, holy shit! Like their ideology is so similar.
100% Americanism.
100% Americanism. Yeah.
Same thing.
And it definitely seems like they're the Sinn Féin to their the Black Legion's IRA.
There you go. There it is. All right. Yeah.
Am I wrong? Did you mention on the farm that J. Edgar Hoover was possibly a member as well?
Oh, he was. I have no idea if he ever put on a black robe, right? Mm-hmm. But was he aware and was he actively protecting them? Absolutely. He was definitely aware of them and was definitely protecting them.
Maybe a black kimono.
Yeah, right. Yeah, yep. Yeah, their oath doesn't say anything about homosexuality, so.
That's, cool.
Yeah,
interesting. All right. Well, progressive meant something different back then. I was thinking about Black Legion, OPSEC, how tight they kept this operation, how like brutal they were in keeping their security tight. Then flash forward to like their descendants, like the base who lets anybody in after like, everybody's got access to the fucking phone lists after their first day, or like Atomwaffen, who they off each other mostly when they get into fights about fucking, I don't know.
Well, that's the Black Legion tradition.
Anti-Islamic memes, yeah, but like that was to like
a little more trivial. Yeah.
There's
a degradation in it.
Some sort of degradation here. Yes.
I guess I'm not mad about that.
Copies after copies of copies of copies.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
It happens.
So we don't have any current governors who are Atomwaffen members.
Right.
I think that's the difference between them.
We're not Finland.
The Black Legion.
Well, it's interesting because I feel like there are some similarities with how the Order of the Nine Angles and the Black Legion got popularly represented.
They're kind of dark, the most dangerous, like Satan kind of. I'm sure the God and the devil thing, part of their oath, also attracted a lot of attention and press now.
Well, let's be clear though about what the Order of Nine Angles versus the Black Legion has managed to pull off. I mean, they do have a church in Montenegro. That's something.
I mean, I guess it would be like 09A was financed by like Elon Musk.
Right.
Yes. Exactly.
Yes.
Wow, wait for that chapter.
It might happen. I wouldn't be surprised.
Yeah, but Musk is so incompetent too. I don't know.
There's no Ford.
That might be what happened. Maybe he took over the Order of Nine Angles. That's what.
Well, Nick Fuentes will be his Bill Cameron.
Okay. Yeah.
They'll work it out. Yeah, I wanted to ask you a little bit about, I guess that actually kind of the representations and like press magnates.
Oh, right. So Hearst.
Big fellas.
Hearst is just like, but even more so, just like Hoover. I can't say he put on a black robe, but everything he did. Well, it seems like the Republican Party was mostly in league with the Black Legion. Generally, not just they say it's just the Wolverine Republican League, but then you say like all these governors were members, all these Congress people were members,
sure,
all the industrial leaders were members. I don't know. Let me just cover this. So there, I mean, Hearst was definitely being lampooned in the newspapers as being Black Legion. Like there's newspapers of two Black Legion members riding an elephant, and one of the Black Legion members' robe says Hearst, and the other Black Legion members says Ford or something.
I'm sure this was right before William Randolph Hearst purchased and shut them down.
This was an independent one. This is a socialist newspaper, so Dayton Dean. Man. I'm confirming his name. Dayton Dean. Yep. Dayton Dean.
Right,
that's the guy's name.
Okay.
So,
Sugar man.
So, there's a editor. There's a congressman, U.S. congressman out of Ohio. Last name was Robert F. Jones. Okay, Robert F. Jones is from Lima, and he was elected to Congress, and then he was appointed to the Appropriations Committee very quickly, which is right. That's where you want to be, cream of the crop, the Appropriations Committee, right? So he was appointed there very quickly, and then in what's the date on this one? Let's see. 47. After World War II, this man was appointed to the FCC. So, and he denies. So there's a lot of newspapers stories about him being Black Legion and him denying it. I never heard about them before I read about them in your newspaper. Same kind of stuff.
Yeah, right. Yes. Staring out a window, shuffling papers, twitching uncontrollably.
Yeah. They say, well, people said your dad was in the Klan. I said, my dad was never in the Klan. And they said, well, this guy says he used to go to the Klan with your dad. Say, he never was in the Klan, and I'm not in the Black Legion. Say, well, this guy says he's the one who actually inducted you in the Black Legion. Sir, I've never, it's just like that, right? Yeah. So, yeah, he was definitely Black Legion. Multiple people, like people in the AFL-CIO, were actually one of the people who said they inducted him.
Wow.
So, he goes straight to the Appropriations Committee and then straight on to Board of FCC. So, popular image. The Black Legion was in control of it. I'd say all along.
Sure.
Yeah.
God damn. Yeah, Hearst, just to remind, I think at the time he owned the most media outlets in the U.S. Like he had a plurality of media outlets in the U.S.
Damn.
I think there's a story about the Black Legion kidnapping his daughter and brainwashing her to rob banks or something. No, I'm kidding. That's the SLA.
So wait, that sounds a few decades off.
So let's see. There's a couple other interesting factoids about what they did. The Black Legion attacked a music professor at Michigan State University that burned down his farm.
Oh, damn.
Because they accused him of being a Bolshevik. So they were also doing the whole persecuting leftist professors, right? They were leftist academics. And so, ironically, they burned his farm down while he was actually in Russia. So he may well have been a Bolshevik. But his friends, they tried to burn it down once, and his friends, his neighbors all came out with shotguns and ran him off. And then, but then that weekend, they came back and burned the whole thing down. So that's a kind of a big story that got some coverage. And then another one is there was a worker camp in Farmington Hills. It was a resort. It was kind of like a campground like a resort training center. Okay. Maurice Sugar was involved with it. I think he ended up holding the title to it when it was burned down. But they would go and just have retreats. I'm sure there's some trainings and stuff there. They had a nice natural pool they built, and it was a cool little area, cabins and whatnot. And so the Black Legion burned that down. And the thing is that so the person that sold the camp insurance was the same person who licensed them in the township or the county, I can't remember, and then was also the same person who had to do the insurance claim adjustment.
Okay.
On the camp, and he was Black Legion.
Okay.
So,
all right.
So they basically, they had all these controlled. They just controlled every angle of these things.
of civil and economic life in several cities. And
there's a good chance the person prosecuting you and the person defending you might be Black Legion,
That's fucking crazy nightmare world.
Yeah.
So the guys that they had in the Union, were they there to do kind of anti-whatever radicalization within the Union, or were they also doing kind of strike-breaking activities as well?
Yeah. They were there to I think identify and get rid of radical elements, and they're also there just to make sure it was ineffective. Say, we know that this place is going to have a union,
because this is something that we see in that Americanist propaganda
it's a
from the time,
it's
which is
company union,
which is the unions themselves aren't bad. There's those are honest guys, but it's these bad elements that come in and try to subvert it, and so that's why we need our people there or whatever to.
It's just the grocery chain Meijer, Meijer, but it's from Grand Rapids, it's from Michigan here, and that's how they ran everything. They got a union from early on, and it was the son of the owner,
Okay.
who started it and ran it. Who was the president?
Wow.
So, yeah, there's we're just gonna get ahead of this,
Very convenient.
Yeah. So I think they were running that angle. Total co-optation. Yeah.
And so then when they start going down after, the pool case and the like, you kind of hint at the fact that they perhaps didn't really disappear.
I mean,
or that they covered up like their connection to the organization itself. But I'd imagine that most of the people didn't go anywhere, and their informal networks probably still existed. No,
I would have to assume when World War II was kind of the big kibosh, right?
Of course, yeah.
And the only reason why J. Edgar Hoover was willing to investigate the Black Legion at all was because Franklin Roosevelt ordered him to directly.
Yeah. Okay. Uh-huh.
And he didn't want to, and he even tried to group them in a different. So he would classify like totally nonviolent civic leftist organizations as like terrorist organizations need extermination.
Mm-hmm.
Then he'd classify the Black Legion as like they're all right. They're just a civic club.
An organization with an unknown amount of murders under their belt.
Maybe they're killing union organizers. Hey, all right.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I could speculate a little here too, just with how American Legion might even fit into that characterization, because there was a very tight connection between Hoover's office and the American Legion intelligence kind of services that they offered.
That makes sense.
And they produced like intelligence reports for Congress and shit that would basically say there is no fascism in the U.S. except for like the KKK, and they're a bunch of slackers, basically.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So it's it's entirely possible that there was a sort of a friendly wink and a nod between those two on this subject.
Like, you're slackers. Stop slacking.
Stop slacking. Yeah, join the Black Legion. Get your hands dirty.
Mm-hmm.
I was going to ask you, did the Black Legion, to your knowledge, have a youth program?
Ooh, not that I'm aware of. They did get a women's auxiliary going.
Okay. They did. That's exactly what the American Legion. That's exactly the American Legion's organization.
The Klan had that as well, though. The Klan had a women's auxiliary.
Yeah. Oh, I guess.
And they basically did it because it was too difficult, because they were demanding a lot of the men's time. Because they would, they'd have to go out almost every night to do some sort of night riding. Either they're initiating people, or they're
getting murdered,
or just
terrorizing,
watching stag videos and getting drunk. I don't know.
Sure.
They had stuff to do. They had to be there. They'd get beaten. Can't miss a meeting.
End up in a pond.
And find you tied to a tree, all beaten up the next day. Which literally happened to people, literally for just missing meetings. They would tie them up, beat them up. Yeah. If you miss multiple meetings, there's accusations that they'd hang you. I don't know if they ever did, just for missing multiple meetings, but they definitely they kept a tight ship. But it's interesting too, because the Effinger had military gear that no civilian should have been able to have. He had chemical, biological weapons.
Oh, word! Damn.
He had poison gas. In fact, one of the here's where it gets really wild, right? When they were getting busted, they were plotting a Bolshevik-style revolution in the U.S. They were studying the Bolshevik Revolution and were going to emulate it, but as a fascist coup in the U.S.
You see that a lot at that time. Yeah.
And they had a code word. It was called Lixit, Lixot.
Lol.
And basically, that was going to be the code word, and they were going to wait for it to get published in major newspapers. Hearst. There was going to be the word with a city, and when that city got mentioned with the word, then that was where the uprising was supposed to launch. Everyone was supposed to converge there to start the revolution.
So if it was like Lixit, Detroit, they would know that everybody would have to go to Detroit.
I hope it was Detroit Lixit.
Right.
I guess how do you fit that into something without it seeming like a misprint?
I know, right?
I don't know. who licks the boot of Roosevelt's, people? Detroit licks it. There you go. Done.
Well done.
So that was, but he had this poison gas, right? And he was planning on putting the gas in every synagogue in the country.
God damn.
And
wait, what year was this? Sorry.
This was it was towards the end. It was like 37, 38.
Okay.
Still kind of ahead of his time there for gassing Jews.
Yep. He was going to gas bomb every synagogue on Rosh Hashanah was his plan.
Damn.
Wow.
And he multiple people said he had vials of gas that he'd like take out to show them. Say like, yeah, I got connections in Fort Bragg or wherever, whoever was making the chemical weapons for the military, he had hand grenades, he had military, level machine guns.
Yeah, see, this is when the Second Amendment still meant something.
Right. You could get sarin gas. It was just some, I forget what kind of gas it was, but it was a bad one. It was a bad one.
Yeah. It was what the American what was it? Expeditionary Forces came up with probably.
And he had all sorts of like James Bond style schemes they were doing. Like they were making like all sorts of assassination gear, like one where you could like put a hose through like a keyhole and then gas somebody in their office and they won't even know it, like stuff like that. Uh-huh. They were making all sorts of gadgets. They had a plan. The health inspector in Michigan and in for Detroit was a Black Legion member. And he was working with this other guy who ran a underground massage parlor and like spa in his basement. Uh-huh. Right?
Not sketchy.
Not sketchy at all. And they were using the hot, humid temperature of his sauna. They were going to culture tuberculosis, I think.
The fuck,
dude? Okay, listen. At least some of these people, at least some of these people went on to join the CIA for sure, right? I mean, this is like some fucking wacky '50s plot stuff.
Well, that's where 30s. I think they just all got So they were going to culture the bacteria in their underground love parlor, right?
Damn. And then, I'm sure already they were culturing bacteria by accident.
That's a
basement
story.
Massage parlor.
It's moist and warm. You're gonna have some bugs, Yes. The plan was to then inject the bacteria into all of the milk bottles in the black neighborhoods of Detroit.
Uh-huh.
Whoa.
Yeah. And they were, these were all plans that I don't think had gotten very far, but they were working on them. They were real, and they had the materials, ready to get it going, And
I mean, it also kind of shows a little bit more, since we haven't really talked about the kind of the motivation here for the, in terms of like racial violence, what they wanted to do, which is, I guess, gas Jews on Rosh Hashanah and poison black neighborhoods' milk. I mean, this is like the kind of worst of the worst in terms of, I mean, they're racists. That says enough. But I mean, like, hatching these kind of schemes is one thing when it's, like, I don't know, people on like Iron March on the internet or something. These people had like considerable access to both like institutionally and otherwise to do, whatever they wanted.
You got to look at someone like, Effinger, and I'm sure a lot of the members were, anyone who fought in the Philippines in the Spanish-American War is already well skilled at mass extermination, depopulation. Outright genocide is something that they have literally been trained and have executed. They have cleansed entire islands of 30,000 people.
And
so
fucking
like
psyops too. Like these sorts of fucking psyop activities happened down there too, where they were just like fucking with people, to terrify them.
Yeah, and that's I mean that was a big part of what Doc Shepard was all about. He wanted the psyop. He thought the Klan was it wasn't scary enough. It wasn't romantic enough. It wasn't surreal terror. It was all out holistic terrorism, and someone who fought in the Philippines, mean, they're damaged goods. I can't imagine them ever being okay or having sane political thoughts unless they went 100% the opposite direction, you know?
Right. You either go the opposite direction or like, what if we did that at home?
Yeah.
Yes.
Imagine all the jobs.
Yeah.
Imagine all the jobs. Exactly.
Get the old boys together and, cleanse Toledo or whatever.
Yeah, yep. That was what they were about. And I have to imagine they just got rolled into the war apparatus in some way. They took out the worst or the most public figures with that big trial they had. What was it called? Was it the Un-American? What was the big trial?
American Activities Committee?
No, it was a big trial they had. What was it? Sedition trial of 1944. There we go.
Sedition trial. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I had alien. I was like, aliens? No, it's not alien sedition. It's a sedition trial. Yeah. Yeah.
The sedition trial of 1944,
which is the Smith Act. Yeah.
Yeah. And so that's where a lot of the public-facing higher-ups were kind of, they faced some punishment, and a lot of these organizations had to rebrand after that or dissolved or. But I'm assuming they mostly just rolled them in after, at least until when the Cold War started going. I mean, this is just standard kind of stay behind thinking.
Yes,
it seems like so.
Oh man, I bet a bunch of them became fucking Green Berets and shit.
Oh, I'm sure.
I'm
sure they all joined World War II. I'm sure a lot of them went to the Pacific Southwest. I'm sure, or Pacific, the Pacific.
I bet
I'm sure that was great for them.
But a few of them ended up in Rome in 48.
I would imagine so. As far as organization goes, this is another confusing thing. Because Bert Effinger, after the Black Legion got exposed and went defunct by 38, he moved down to Texas and he started this is the official story still, this is a new organization called the Patriotic League of America, right?
Okay.
And the only real difference was this one seemed more above ground. Mm-hmm. And they're cool with Catholics. So they said that was the big distinction, is they were cool with Catholics, but otherwise it was the same. And the official story is that the printer, he went to print these leaflets, the guy who worked at the printing shop kind of recognized the story, kind of knew what was up, and he sent the leaflets to the FBI, and the FBI just shut the whole thing down. It just went quiet, right?
Okay.
But then, I'm reading this newspaper about this Jones congressman, right? The different articles than what I was reading earlier. And it talks about, he says, no, I was not a member of the Patriots League of America when he was being accused of being a Black Legion member.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay. And so I think this was even before this would have been before that league would even have been started. Okay.
Okay.
Well, not when he was being interviewed. It was interviewed in 47. But
wait, so somebody asked him, were you a member of the Black Legion? And he responded, no, I was not a member of the Patriotic League of America.
Yes.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
Yep.
Whoops. No, I never worked for the FBI.
And so, it's weird. And there's another, I think it was Paul Amen. I think that was the scholar. He's considered like the scholar of the Black Legion, when you get to the academic side. He's the big dog. And he writes about people being in the Patriotic League of America like years later.
Okay.
So I don't think they really ceased to exist, or maybe they existed in some strange nebulous form. I don't know, but there's some big mystery around that, right? That I'm really curious about. But there are other organizations that grew out of it that definitely had major membership. There was like the Workers League of the U.S.
Yeah, I was trying to look that one up because
that had Detroit membership.
Okay.
Some prominent Detroit membership. So there's definitely direct overlap with them.
Okay.
Interesting.
That is interesting because I think it was called like the American Workers League or something like this, and that's like a direct take. If that's true, that follows the line of a lot of European socialist organizations. Period, which is an interesting and very Nazi move on their part.
Yeah.
Well, maybe a very Ford move, huh?
Yeah. Sorry. Well, that's what the Nazis were. They were a very Ford move.
They were very Fordist.
Yeah.
And that's something that like. Harry Bennett, I'd heard his name. There's a local historian here who's really awesome. His name is Matt Siegfried. He's great. If you're ever doing stuff on like civil rights movement or radical unionism in Detroit, he's the guy to go to. He's amazing. Very knowledgeable. He's trained over at EMU here too. But a lot of the historical signs in Michigan, you notice the roadside buildings. He's actually written a lot of those.
Oh, nice.
All right.
But so I like heard Bennett in passing. But still, until I got into like this stuff, I was like, holy shit! How like this guy is like, Hoover and like Kissinger and like, we have these people that like we just like people who know history at least and have any sort of ethic, just revile, right? Like, oh man, this like Hitler, oh my god, what a monster. But Harry Bennett, this dude he just fucked off into the desert and made art, and like he was at least as bad as any of them. I mean, he didn't.
He got the George Bush treatment, the George W. rather.
Yeah. And there are pictures of him. I honestly think that Ronald Reagan was modeled after Harry Bennett.
Ooh,
I think his persona.
Do you mean when they programmed him in
no,
in the cloning fabric?
Just like the archetypal persona he liked to the whole Western thing. Bennett was super into Western stuff.
Oh, sure, that makes sense.
There's this desert artist named Paul Grims who's pretty famous, and he painted a portrait of Bennett, and the dude looks just like Will Rogers, the guy who died filming Genghis Khan because he got irradiated. Is that him?
Really? I don't know. I didn't know that. That's awesome.
John Wayne. I'm John Wayne. That's who it is.
John Wayne.
I knew it wasn't Roger.
Come on.
Yeah, John Wayne. Harry Bennett.
He's our favorite.
He was one of America's experiments, right? Let's see what happens when you irradiate a film crew. It'll be great.
Yeah. John Wayne has been on our show so much.
He gave his life.
He's been on so often.
The American Project. But there's a picture of Harry Bennett the way he looks just like John Wayne. Like if you had to guess, you would probably guess it was a John Wayne movie advertisement poster.
I mean, it makes perfect sense to us because we've seen a lot of them, and John Wayne always basically plays a guy who is completely emotionally broken inside, like can't feel anything except rage, drinks a lot, and punches people constantly.
Yep. Hates women.
Yeah. Or at like his most gallant, ignores them.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh yeah. If you guys want to see a picture, I can send you a picture.
Absolutely. Yeah. Please send all the pictures. We'll put them on our Patreon page underneath this episode. It's always nice to have some visual aids. These are podcast listeners, not readers.
I know, right?
Kidding. That's a joke, people. I know you're all fucking nerds like us.
Yeah, if you're listening to this podcast, you're a nerd.
Yeah, absolutely. Sure. Yes.
That's why I'm a fan. I know my people when I hear them. Yeah.
Yes.
And you actually toe like a really solid anti-fascist line, not like a lot of these people who are like, "Are you actually a crypto conservative?"
Yeah. Yeah.
Like you're anti-fascist, but are you a crypto conservative? I don't know. Okay, so yeah.
We're mostly just interested in the bad capital, financial capital, the parasitic forms of capital.
Maybe some of the people say, "Oh, holy shit, you're right."
Right.
It's a very John Wayne photo.
Yeah. So I gotta speculate. Like he moved there in 45 after and that his place down there was a gift from Ford Sr., right? So so basically, when Ford Sr. got too old to run the company, his son Edsel Ford took over, and Henry was like, "My son's not tough. I don't trust him to run the company." So he put Harry Bennett on the board to basically handle Edsel Ford.
Yes.
And now Ford's family says that at least they said that Harry Bennett killed Edsel Ford.
Wow.
And in some of that, you read it, and it sounds like he just antagonized Edsel Ford into so much anxiety that he got stomach cancer from too much anxiety, and he died. Right?
He drove him into an early grave.
Right.
He fucking sent him into the tunnels with lions in the dark and probably shot at him.
It's not explicit. It doesn't say yes. He undermined him into so much anxiety that he then got stomach cancer and died. It was like Harry Bennett is the reason that Edsel Ford died. Right.
I mean, ulcers are real. That's not.
Ulcers are real. Yeah, it's very possible. It's also very possible that he was trying to take over the company, which he did. He did try to take over the company.
Yeah.
So
very plausible.
Yeah, he had worked. So after Edsel died, Henry Ford came back to manage it from retirement.
Yeah.
And during this period, he rewrote his will to make Harry Bennett the inheritor of the entire Ford automotive company.
Ooh, amazing.
So Harry Bennett was supposed to be the replacement for Henry Ford.
Damn, can you imagine?
But then the Ford family was really pissed off, and they got together and they were able to work it to get Ford II to take back over the company.
It's such a palace intrigue shit. It's
awesome.
Yeah,
totally. And so Henry Ford II, the first thing he did is he had been working with this FBI agent called Burgess, something like that. And Burgess had been like on Bennett's trail since he was in the FBI. And he hired I don't know how to say it, Burgess. He hired him to replace Bennett and to fire Bennett, right? So the story is that as his first act as president, he fired Harry Bennett. Burgess walks down to his office where Harry Bennett liked to practice sharpshooting.
Yeah.
He liked to sharpshoot in such a way that if you didn't announce yourself and he was practicing, you'd walk right in front of the target and get shot, right?
Yeah.
He was also a really good shot. Apparently, he could shoot the tip off of a pencil, and he liked to just demo in his office. So when he walked in to fire Bennett, they apparently had a standoff, and they both drew pistols, and they had pistols pointed at and Burgess told him like, "Go ahead and shoot me. I'll kill you right now," and that's how he got fired. And so that,
the fuck?
Yeah.
I mean, I kind of wish that happened more often in board games.
Yes.
Way more entertaining.
Yeah, so I mean, that's the dark. That's whatever the neo-feudalistic Silicon Valley dark Enlightenment vision. So
So then Harry Bennett, destroyed all of his company paperwork. Just had a giant bonfire, and I would love. Oh man, those archives.
Yeah.
Man.
Yes.
I can only imagine. What was in there, but so then he just went and fucked off to the desert, right, and made art, but Southwest California, and in the late 40s, and you got the whole cowboy milieu, and then you got Ronald Reagan, and you got the whole state behind operations, and it's just like, man, this is cultural continuity, whether or not Bennett there's just this flow,
That's the flow of Schitt's Creek.
Yeah.
That we're all up here.
So I don't know, like what we had. What was there? There was the Red Riders, right? Is that what they were called? The socialists who adopted the Klan style to fight the Klan. Is that what they were called?
Right. Yeah,
that's new to me.
Oh,
whoa!
I think they were called the Red Riders. They were the Red something, but they were the anti-Klan, and they went and hunted Klansmen, and they were socialists, and they wore red robes, right?
Crazy. All right.
And I've heard stories about this bomber. I found a true crime novel one time in Ann Arbor in some used bookstore, and it was about this dynamiter who used to kill industrialists. He was a miner who then would kill industrialists with dynamite caps and stuff like that. He tracked down he tracked down some of the people who were responsible for the massacre. What was it? Where they machine gunned all the people out in the prairie, all the workers. I can't remember which one that was. One of the great massacres of American workers, and you hear stories about that. I'm like, man, where's the Red Legion? Like, come on, guys.
Yes. Damn, this shit is insane. I'm so angry at public schools for making American history boring because they had to work so hard at that. Can you imagine how hard it must have been to make it suck?
We can thank Henry Ford for that. All you got to do is go to Greenfield Village and be like, oh, wow, okay.
Or the Americanization committees, of these motherfuckers. Yeah, God damn.
Because once you erase, racial violence and labor violence from U.S. history, there's not much left.
No, that's kind of essential to our political and economic history here.
Well, God damn.
That whole era, they loved the Spanish-American War too.
Right? Sure.
They loved it. Ypsilanti, we've got statues for it. The wandering soldier or something. two artists made different variations of the statue, but they're all over the place.
I've seen a lot of monuments to that war, not in Michigan, but throughout like other Rust Belt cities as well, like in Ohio and PA and stuff.
Yeah,
probably a lot of soldiers came from there too.
and so there's US 23, right, that runs up through here, really close to me, and it runs along. Well, it splits off from I-75. I-75 runs straight up to Mackinac, and 23 hugs the Lake Huron, and it goes up there. And that has been renamed the Spanish American War Memorial Highway, and that's where all the industrialists were, right there, right by Detroit. It runs from Detroit up to Mackinac, And anyone who studied that war, it's just it's just a case study in ethnic cleansing. It's awful. Yeah. One of the most horrifying accounts to read is about the Spanish American War.
Yeah, the Philippines. I mean, it's shockingly forgotten too.
Yeah.
But I guess there's been quite a few wars in between that the U.S. has done. So.
But you got to remember the Alamo.
Oh yeah, of course.
I literally had a kid when I was at EMU. I was studying history, and I had a kid walk up to me and said, if we didn't fight them in Vietnam, it would have been domino theory, and they all would have gone communist. I was like, are you talking domino theory to me in awesome. Mid-2000s? Like, get out of here, man. That's craziness.
Great.
Yeah.
Do you have a book on this? Are you working on a book on
this? Oh, man. I should. I should be. I really should be. I'm mostly just depressed.
Sure. Yeah. Sign of a great author.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I've compiled some notes. I like doing, since grad school, and I've just been working shit jobs. Podcasts have just been kind of my hobby and out. So I like the medium. It's easy. I have two really young children. And my spouse does a lot of nonprofit stuff with the homeless, and we're pretty busy. So doing something as what's the word?
Well,
ambitious. Something as ambitious as writing a book. I could though. I mean, I could. I did grad school, and grad school. I was writing 75 pages a week.
Let's get a GoFundMe for Lester. Huh?
Oh, dude! If I could get paid to do stuff like this. I live really close. There's a Bentley library up here at U of M.
Come on,
and,
great.
They would have. I can't even imagine the stuff they'd have about Bennett and Ford.
Yes.
Yeah. So if people wanna pay me to live in an archive and let you know what I learned, nothing would make me happier.
Well, we're gonna put your Patreon link in the show description.
Yeah, something unexplained is
that's
is
a
my
start.
Patreon. Yeah, you can.
It's a start there.
Yeah, and like I said, I put those shows out. I haven't done it much since my friend had his medical problems. But like I said, I have 3 shows written. I got people who want to come on and do some bits. So, but I do want to do serious stuff too. And if you support the Patreon, it will help me to do serious stuff.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Somebody's got to do it.
Hell yeah.
We just crack jokes over here.
I've learned so much from your guys' podcast. It's amazing.
Oh,
you guys,
thanks.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
I learned a shit ton from this.
Hell yeah.
Well, I'm glad we have a Michigan correspondent now because there's, especially in the last arc, I kept on coming across like Detroit related stuff and just not knowing enough about it or knowing enough people there that are nerds that can.
If you ever want to put me on a lead, I'm happy to chase it down.
I will actually.
Yeah, hell yeah.
I have to go through some of my notes from old. There's all kinds of like crazy ex-Yugo stuff going on in Detroit in the 1930s and 40s. So
wow. What did the Black Legion have some anti-Slav shit going on too? That was pretty popular at the time.
Yeah, I haven't seen anything specifically. I think they probably just wouldn't grouped in with the immigrants. They really hated the Poles specifically.
Oh, that's the same thing. I mean, they were all Poles then. I mean, like,
they that's why Belak, he was a Hudsonville. He worked in the Hudson plant. He got murdered. He got murdered probably by his own foreman, who was a Black Legion member. He was Polish, and he was Union and Polish, so then they could get away with it. If the Black Legion, they knew it was like, okay, he's a foreigner and he's a Union guy, we can get away with this. And they did. They got there are at least like 53 murders that they think were committed in Detroit by the Black Legion. more suspected. But the thing is, because they did like to use clandestine methods, they did just like to run people over in cars on the sidewalk,
right?
And stuff like that. If you actually look at hit and run homicides in Detroit during that era, they are out of control.
Okay.
People were getting murdered by cars all the time.
Okay. Then does it like suddenly drop off when the Black Legion is exposed?
I haven't done enough of a statistical analysis, but I thought it was
I guess
interesting
that's a different
enough to know.
take on Motor City, huh?
Yeah,
Well,
totally.
Well, Motor City, I mean, that's another Ford link and why it makes sense, because when they have, why I think maybe it was just kind of like a cultural post-Klan thing and then got formalized by Bennett and Ford, or etc., is their most basic unit was based on how many people could fit in the average car.
Okay.
Right? So it almost seems like they were trying to make night riding modern.
Yeah.
They were trying to modernize night riding with the Ford automobile.
Yeah.
Right?
Huh.
It's the way of the future.
Yeah.
Damn. Horseless carriage.
Yeah.
They called it. Well, God,
they're all also Masons. I mean, that's probably not as indicative of anything as the KKK affiliations, but they were all upper level Masons too. Bert Effinger was 32nd. Doc Shepard, I think, was. Henry Ford was a member of the Palestine lodge here of the Masons, and I think Bennett might have been in that lodge too. He might have been in a different lodge. So it just means they got networks. They got different numbers they can move through. Yeah.
All right. Well, I got to actually also roll too, because I got Sal Falcon coming over here.
Salvador Falcon, long lost to the show. All right. Well, Lester, man, thanks a lot. Anytime
I appreciate it. And like I said,
here.
put me on some leads. This shit gets me excited.
Cool.
It's the easiest cure for my depression.
Hey, it's the easiest way for us to do episodes because you do all the work.
Right on. It might exacerbate other mental illness, but at least the depression.
Oh, gallows humor. Dark times.
I appreciate y'all. You all do amazing work. I definitely consider you the gold standard on these kinds of topics. And
thank you.
Y'all are real. So stay in touch. Appreciate you.
Yeah, thanks for coming on.
Back at you. Talk to you later.
See ya.
Cheers.
Hey there, all you free people enjoying your free episodes from The Empire Never Ended. Maybe scoot on over to patreon.com/TENEPOD and become a patron. We publish 3 additional premium episodes there alongside the 2 freebies each month. We're on Twitter too, also at TENEPOD, but our Patreon is really where it's at. See you there, maybe?
We didn't originate on this planet.